Let's do it.
Excited that our players have the opportunity to benefit and learn how to be professionals outside of just football and student athletes, but, as a business person, and that's growing and going to continue to grow here at Oregon. But the innovation that's taking place here, that continues to take place here as we continue to navigate this world, I'm really happy with the side that we're on, and we're not being reactive, but proactive in our approach.
Howdy, everybody. Hope you're having a great Tuesday, the 28th. Dennis 50 in with you here. That was Dan Lanning, the 36-year-old head coach, new head coach, first-time head coach of Oregon football. You may recall he was the defensive coordinator last year at Georgia. He was on the ESPN College Football Pod just a couple days ago. And the question was about name, image, and likeness. And that's what Dan Lanning had to say. Well, we got a lot of different things to say. Welcome in is the first thing. It's Maize and Blue Reviews, Michigan football, basketball today. We're live weekdays at 1 o'clock talking about the latest in Michigan sports. And today is going to be a little name, image, and likeness. It's been a topic that has dominated over the summer. I'll talk about it a little bit again today. On the screen, you've got the call-in number. If you want to get in there, go ahead, fire away, 810-666-1574. And what are we going to be talking about today? Well, I have also, over the summer, I haven't really said exactly the days that I have put it in on different times, different days. Sometimes I have a guest, I don't put it in there, and some other times I don't either. But today, I continue with my top TV shows of all time. So that's coming your way straight ahead. But we will start with name, image, and likeness, and the idea that maybe Michigan is going to take a year off. Now, is it Friday that we are a year away from name, image, and likeness being a year old? So you could say, well, Michigan's already taken a year off. Maybe taking another year off, the idea to see how this thing's really going to play out and if they should be jumping in with both feet or whatever. That's really where I'm coming from here. And you may ask yourself the question, can Michigan afford to wait? Like, what are you talking about? You want Michigan to wait? I'm not saying I want Michigan to just sit on their hands and wait. It just comes with some of the eye-popping money that's going specifically to quarterbacks. We all knew that Michigan was in on a local quarterback, and they still are, technically. We haven't got the official word that there's been a commitment elsewhere. But some of the, rumblings, talk behind the scenes about how much it's going to take. And then we've seen, some of the other players that were ranked a little bit lower than Dante Moore out of Detroit going for some, crazy reported numbers, even though we're talking about Rashada, the quarterback who looked like he was going to go to Florida or Miami. And Miami, there was the talk of $9.5 million. The kid came back and issued a statement yesterday or the day before and said, look, I'm not taking all this money and everything else. That's how you do it in the age of name, image, and likeness. You may have collected $9.5 million, but the way to just easily wiggle out of that and get the school off the hook for anything is that you just come out and say, look, I'm not getting $9.5 million for anyway. And in a couple of weeks or on signing day or whatever else, when you are actually getting your $9.5 million, and say, well, yeah, I'm getting it now. But I wasn't back then. That was all just a bunch of conjecture and people saying that. I never said it. And that's how you get away with it. And you can say, wow, NCAA. That's right. It gets to really the heart of the matter, that guaranteed money, which you're not supposed to be involved in a pay-for-play type situation, but everyone seemingly, or a lot of teams are involved in a pay-for-play, and it looks to be really easy to get away with pay-for-play because if you're a head coach, you don't say anything like, yeah, we're paying quarterback X, $1 million to come here. You don't say that. You got other people that see it and say, well, they're paying player X And then if the NCAA calls or anybody else that wants to get the player X on record, player X just says, no, I'm committing to this school. And I'm looking forward to the name, image, and likeness. And then, the next day he's cashing in his $1 million. It's that easy to you have the NIL and you're driving straight forward. You're not supposed to be pay for play. Tap that brake, pull right around, and woo, back in. And you're in and you're in. And you don't have to worry about it. School doesn't have to worry about it. NCAA can't do anything. It's not like they can subpoena you and put you, and they're not doing that. They might make a call and say, hey, did they promise you $9.5 million to go there, pay for play type situation? You just say, no, I just decided to go there. Now I'm getting paid, but that wasn't an inducement. That's how easy it is. And that's where we are at. So, when you heard Jim Harbaugh, I don't know what it was, a month ago, saying Michigan's playing the transformational game, not the transactional game, everybody's like, uh-oh. And I thought, uh-oh, as well. But I also thought that Harbaugh might just be saying that for public consumption, but behind the scenes, everybody was building up an NIL war chest and, dangling it out in front of the recruits. And even though Jim's talking about no transactions, NIL boosters could be like, yeah, here it is, come get it. And maybe that is still the case. But when you get such big time money that is out there, I think there's a few things to consider here. And while I'll state it again, it's not like I'm saying that Michigan, or I'm like, hey, everything's good with Michigan with the name, image, and likeness. I really like their approach. They're doing a fantastic job. Oh, man, everybody should be, leading the way like Michigan when it comes to name, image, and likeness. That's not what I'm saying. I didn't like Harbaugh's approach. I don't really know exactly what's going on behind the scenes. And that's what we're going to discuss a little bit here. Now, the quarterback in question, Dante Moore, who went out to Oregon, there was some talk that, Oregon came to the table with a very strong name, image, and likeness promise or guarantee. Well, we don't know that. But there was a thought that, Michigan was saying that they were going to be competitive with Oregon with name, image, and likeness. So you just stop right there and consider what I had to say. Is if we go back, it wasn't a year ago. It was, maybe, I don't know, less than a year ago. Valiant's Jared Wangler came on and, I was talking about, driving Porsches or whatever else. And he said, that's not what Michigan's collective's about. Now, that's not what the collective's about. Collective's about letting the players, get a t-shirt and be able to get some percentages off of that and go out there and cut some other deals. It's not about giving players luxury cars to go to school. And yet it really looks like part of it is luxury cars. I've seen cars at Florida. I've seen cars out on the field at East Lansing. And, oh, yeah, Michigan's interior offensive linemen, Keegan and Zinter, were both stuffed into a white Lamborghini. And the guy that owns the Lamborghini dealership was a Michigan grad. So those guys got hooked up with a Lamborghini. And you can say, well, yeah, they're already players. They're not promising it to would-be recruits. And technically, that is correct. And that's Michigan's approach. The imagery, to me, it wasn't lost on me. If I was a recruit, I could say, hey, I can get a Lamborghini if I go to Michigan. No, they're not guaranteeing it, which is the whole point. But just a little while before that, he was like, that's not Michigan. Michigan's not promising anybody. They're not promising them, but they kind of are. You know what I'm saying? And it was the same thing with Oregon and whatever they're promising, because I hear that Michigan was saying whatever, when it comes down to money, Michigan's right there with name, image, and likeness, which sounds like they're promising that money's going to be there, but they're not guaranteeing it. Again, coming down to, whatever that number is, 3 million, 4 million, 5 million, Michigan's there. You're going to have that opportunity to make that money, but they're just not promising it. And apparently other schools are promising it and going over the top and promising even more. So some of that sounds suspicious, this wording to me. And that's where I'm talking about Michigan playing the long view on this, and maybe, just going about business the way that, their idea was like, hey, you can come to Michigan and you can, go ahead. We've got people that can help you over there, but we're not promising you anything. We're not guaranteeing you anything. You can go ahead and make some of this money on your name. But you know what? We're not saying anything about 6 figures, certainly not 7 figures or 8 figures, like maybe potentially some of these guys are getting. And no, Michigan's not going to promise anybody any jobs or give you jewelry or cars. Although everything is sponsorable. Like if you heard somebody, and this is just some of the discussion, people are like, well, this team's cheating. They're giving them, they're promising them money. They're giving them a Ferrari. They're giving them a $200,000 gold necklace, and they're giving their parents a home. And you say, well, I don't want to just say so what casually, but it's a very thin line. Like name, image, and likeness. You can have a mortgage company and a builder company. You can give somebody a home once the kid goes there. As long as you don't promise it to them. Wink, wink. And you can get a house. You can get a $250 or $250. You get a $250,000 chain. And yeah, people can get jobs. Now, specifically, you're not supposed to. It's supposed to be cheating, because people are saying that's cheating if you give somebody from a player's family a job on the coaching staff. And I didn't get great clarification on this, but if I'm a 5-star quarterback and my son, Dennis Fithian Jr., is named offensive coordinator, I mean, the NCAA doesn't have teeth to do anything, but if it's illegal to have somebody on the coaching staff from your family, isn't it pretty easy? Are they changing their name, or if they have a different name, or, however it is, that's your uncle on your mom's side or something like that? So what I'm saying about that is I'm not really buying it about the family ties. They want a job in with the building. Okay, well, are there ways to, get people employment? Is it cheating to, find them some jobs? Does it necessarily have to be connected with a university? And if you're not from around the way, also promising, charter luxurious flights, is that cheating? Now that seems to be sponsorable. Yeah, you can come out and go see your son play anytime. We will have a jet fueled up and waiting for you. You just have to pull up. Just come pull up. I've been on a few charters and met a few charters down at Metro. It's very nice. The nicest part, there's a lot of nice aspects to it. Everything's nicer than flying commercial. You don't have to go through all the airport rigmarole or anything. You're over by the airport, but it's like off to the side, just some field. You just come pulling up, park your car, come walking in, grab a few drinks, food box. You're on the plane. Somebody's putting your luggage in the back and you're good to go. Pretty nice. Yeah. So, charters is something that if you're bringing somebody in from out of state, you can't promise them that, but you could say, if you come to Michigan, you'd have the opportunity to charter in. That sounds like a promise. I mean, so again, we're getting back to it's a little bit silly of stuff. Now, somebody say you can guarantee somebody a starting job, and Michigan's not doing that. This is the oldest trick in the book when it comes down. Well, they guaranteed him a starting job. What coach? You're going to say, you want to play right away? If the kid wants to play right away, what you guarantee him is that, yeah, you can go ahead, and if you're the best quarterback, I'll guarantee you an opportunity to, play that first game and start as a freshman. That's a little bit different than saying, you know what, doesn't matter what happens. You want to come in? We'll just guarantee you a starting spot. Nobody's doing that. Not anything. I mean, that's old days. You might think that that's going on. I'm not buying that myself, because somebody was saying, That's the different part. And first of all, that's not cheating. It's really stupid for a head coach. It would also be stupid. Kids are smart enough now, even if you're the number one quarterback in the country. Do you think Arch Manning, do you think Sark said, hey, Arch, when you come in next year, Quinn Ewers goes out and plays great, we're just going to say, Quinn, the hell with you. We're putting Arch in. Or Arch sprains his ankle, isn't able to come in for spring, isn't able to work out in the summer, gets into 2 weeks before fall camp, is finally able to practice. Ewers had a great season before in this hypothetical. And, Sark's like, man, I promised Arch that he's going to be the starter. I'm sorry. You don't believe that. And neither do I. You can always leave your feedback in real time. I get to it. It's part of the way, if you're not calling in, that you can be part of the show. Here's Trepa on the feedback, who says, I really don't believe you can reverse what has been expanded on with name, image, and likeness. Pay for play is not new. So everyone needs to adjust if they want to give themselves a legitimate chance to win. Well, Trepa, it's a great lead for me and what I'm talking about, and asking if Michigan should be taking a year off to analyze and see how this is going to go. And if it was a different time and a different year, I could have a different answer. But we're playing with actually what is happening right now. And what we know as fact is that Michigan won the Big Ten last year. If they didn't win the Big Ten and they were off in recruiting and they were like tiptoeing around and they were getting beat because other teams were promising them things and Michigan wasn't, you could sit back and say, Michigan's never winning anything. This is a joke. You could say that. Now, they also have, and this is a fact, although, you could say, well, how good of a roster? They have a very promising roster for this upcoming season. And they're flush at quarterback, the specific position that we're talking about giving up big money to. You know what I mean, Trepa? And I'll just use Dante Moore for an example. I want Dante Moore to come to Michigan. I want Dante Moore, Michigan to offer him whatever they can, $4 million, $5 million. If they don't want to say we're promising it to you, they can just put all of the money over here to the right and say, hey, you see the $5 million? You have the opportunity to make that here. We just can't say that we're guaranteeing it to you, but here it is. You have the opportunity. That's all they need to say. Not that big of a deal. But the thing to me is, I would rather Michigan, in some ways, it was a blessing in disguise that J.J. McCarthy banged up his shoulder and wasn't able to compete for the starting job in spring. Because Michigan has two quarterbacks. One, a Big Ten championship QB, and Cade McNamara, who's going to start this season for him. And then they've got the young sophomore who played a lot last year and is going to play a lot more this year. And a lot of people, myself included, think that by the time October 1st comes around, that McCarthy will be the starter for Michigan because he has a higher ceiling. I don't know for sure, and I don't really have anything against Cade McNamara at all. If Cade fights off J.J. McCarthy and ends up, playing so fantastic that it gives the staff no choice but to go with Cade on the road October 1st against Iowa, I'm all right with that. I just make my predictions. It's hard to say this, but it's true. I want the best for Michigan and the players. Now, it's tough. Like, you pick one and say, hey, this is what you think's going to happen. But it was just like back in the day with Tom Brady and Drew Henson. Tom Brady's first pass, he came in against UCLA and he threw a pick six. Michigan won the championship. They went out and, they got smacked upside the head in their first game in Tom Brady's career where he started. And they started 0-1. They came home in their home opener against Syracuse, and Donovan McNabb and the Orange punched him in the mouth. And Tom Brady started 0-2. You better believe there are a lot of people thinking, hey, why not go with the local kid? Let's just get this out of the way. Plus, the local kid was pretty good. And the local kid was great. And he proved out to be a great college quarterback. It'd have been awesome to see what would have happened if he would have stayed around. But I'm going to fast forward you a little bit here. The part about Michigan potentially taking a year to let this play out. And you could say, I wish Michigan would have just pushed $10 million in cash like they do at the World Series of Poker, and then held up a sign saying, hey, Dante, we're not promising you this, but if you come to Michigan, there's an opportunity where you could have this $10 million. And then Dante Moore committed to Michigan, which is actually still a possibility, not the $10 million or anything, but it's still possible that he could come here. But all of this, noise around the Ducks and everything is out there. Look, it was like this with Hunter Dickinson to me. Like, Hunter Dickinson got his 6 figures or whatever in name, image, and likeness. And I'm glad that he was able to get that money over a potential, 4 or even 5-star high school basketball player. I'm glad Dickinson's going to be able to provide more than any 4 or fringe 5-star. Maybe not the best player in the country. Maybe you would want to had him over Dickinson. We can always argue about that. But what I'm saying is, Michigan, as luck would have it, or it's just the position that they're in, they have 2 starting quarterbacks in the age of name, image, and likeness when people are paying $2, $3, $4, $9.5 million. And if you paid Dante Moore $9.5 million and you got to October and Michigan's clicking off 4 or 5 in a row, one of these 2 quarterbacks, at least somebody in their family might say, hey, how about you give Cade or JJ $1 million or 2 or 3 or 5? Because these guys, you might not want to upset the apple cart. There is a little bit of a concern on that. I know Harbaugh said it. I know yesterday I said, look, players want other players to get money and all that other stuff, but it is a weird part because it's just been in and is grandfathered in. Those guys didn't have their chance to get their NIL paydays, and now they're on the roster, and then you got guys coming in. Like if McCarthy would have gotten 4 or 5 million, I don't know, hypothetically, and Cade would have gotten 1 or 2, whatever, it would be different. You better believe whichever of the 2, McNamara or McCarthy, wins the job and ends up being the odds-on favorite to start next year, that in the offseason, do you want that NIL collective? Do you want to give them a couple million, or do you want to, give the couple million? You're going to have to do both. So that's another part about waiting to see. And again, it's not what I wanted for Michigan to wait and see. I wanted them, to get the big time prospect. I wanted them, to be like Texas and have the number 1, Quinn Ewers 1 year, Arch Manning the next. I wanted Michigan to get Dante Moore 1 year and Jaden Davis the next. But they're in pretty good position with the roster that they have coming up. They also are the defending Big Ten champs. If those 2 things weren't in play, I would be yelling a lot more to, hey, let's start peeling off those dollar bills. Let's get, like when Michigan was building up their stadium, let's get this brick program going. Let's start, getting the tin cup around, rattling around. I know that just, a month or 2 ago when I talked with somebody that would be one of the first calls that anybody that was running a Michigan collective would call, the guy told me, I haven't been contacted. What? Now, maybe he has over the last month or 2. I'm going to have to place a call, but just talking 2 months ago, a guy that would be donating thousands of dollars, one of the first people you would call if you were running a Michigan collective, had not been contacted about getting any money going for some Michigan push with a name, image, and likeness. And things have changed just with Michigan. Michigan was like, no, we're not giving up any cars. No, we're not going to be, anything with name, image, and likeness. And now here they are. It feels like they were acting like they were promising stuff out there. Not promising, however they did it. They made it known to Dante Moore, apparently, that he could have made millions of dollars here at Michigan. I don't know how they spelled that out to him without promising it to him. I don't know. Maybe you're smarter than me. I just keep saying that, hey, you have this opportunity. We can't promise. I think they just spell it out. Don't they just spell it out to you? Hey, look, Dante, we can't promise you this $3 million. That's against the rules. But what we can promise you is you're going to have this opportunity, and just look at all the, you just have to put your signature. So again, not promising you, but you have the opportunity to make this money, and all you have to do is sign your name on these different contracts. Is that promising somebody money? Saying that you have the opportunity and all you have to do is sign? That's, to me, I don't know. Like, I'm not the smartest guy. I'm not the stupidest guy, but, people are like, Michigan is not cheating. They're not getting, and you don't even have to cheat. What kind of, you call it whatever you want. If a team's out here just saying, look, we're guaranteeing you this money, come on in, you guarantee it. And the other team's like, we're guaranteeing you have the opportunity, and look, here's the opportunity right in front of you. It's a pseudo guarantee. Let's just see what the feedback. Maybe I'm saying a bunch of stupid things and I'm not connecting with people and I have no idea what I'm talking about. There's Trepa. We already read that one. Travis saying that the 5-star corner, Toviano, tweeted, "Hi, Dante Moore yesterday. Toviano, sorry, has been trending towards Michigan lately after his official visit. What did this tweet mean?" Travis, I saw the tweet and I didn't want to I told you last week, sorry, that, as far as recruiting goes, it's a wild scene. I didn't want to take that as these two are, Dante's back coming to Michigan. I don't know, Travis. I saw it. I almost put that tweet up here, but I almost felt like I was trolling myself with that. Hopefully it is good news, Travis. You're right. Hopefully it's great news for Michigan, and Toviano was just throwing that out there. At the very least, he's trying to get Dante to either reconsider or just consider more, despite what Oregon potentially has out on the table as a promise or whatever. However they're presenting it. And I get it. There's one thing about Michigan is like, here's a typical Michigan fan. Oregon cheats. Michigan doesn't. That's why Oregon's going to end up getting Dante Moore. And they might be right. But they also might be just using it as an excuse. Like, everybody, Oregon, this is just the way they're doing things. They're just doing business like everyone else. It feels to me a lot like driving on the expressway, Travis. You're not supposed to go over 70 miles per hour. But everybody over in the left lane's got their foot smashed down to the floor, and everybody's going over 70. Does that mean you're a bad person, you lack integrity, that you're a cheater? It means you're going over the speed limit like everyone else. The cops are standing over on the side. They're not doing anything. In fact, I've talked to enough police officers where they give you the, what is it? 5, you're fine. 9, you're mine. No, that doesn't rhyme. 6, you're fine. 7, you're fine. 9, you're mine. I've heard that plenty of times for the cops. What that means is you can go 77 miles per hour in a 70. Most cops, nah. You go 9 over, that's when they're nabbing you. All right. Yeah, the Toviano tweet, it was interesting. I was right with you there, Travis. I saw it. Travis, why don't you shoot me a tweet so I can follow you? I'm at Dennis Fithian on Twitter. I like following Michigan fans. Here's Blue Dove. JJ to start game 1. Why not start the most talented? Well, Blue, I think that it's just how this has played out. He hadn't had a chance to win the job in spring because of his shoulder. He's just now getting back to throwing. I don't know how much you can compete in the summer phase. Maybe you can. It seemed like Joe Milton was able to win the job in the summer phase. So it could happen. Because, and I'll just parse what you had to say there about McCarthy. If I'm Michigan, I want to start the best quarterback for Michigan's team in game 1. Not the most talented, but the best situation for Michigan. I think that is going to be McCarthy McNamara. Now, if McCarthy is hitting everything as clearly, just run past Cade McNamara. But you know how fall camp and spring goes? These guys don't do a whole lot. Sure, throw the football around in some skeleton drills. They got a lot of things. They're wearing orange shirts. I think because the honest answer to this is that even though the Bullets are live September the 3rd, Michigan has 4 warm-up games. Michigan's got, the easy, and Alabama's got an easy schedule. I'm not dogging Michigan, although there have been a few times where it sounds like I have. Michigan's got 4 layups. 3 if you just want to, not include Maryland. I'm including Maryland. Michigan's got 3 games where they can let these two actually battle it out where the other team's going to be allowed to hit them. That's when I'm going to make my decision for that game. Everything to me, they can't say this, but if behind closed doors they can. And this is what they're saying. We get a chance to play both guys here. And it would be an upset, even if you're as talented as J.J. McCarthy, to win the job by September 3rd, considering that you hadn't been able to throw until summer camp. That's just my guess on it. Educated. Well, I don't know if it's educated. Antoine, I understand the dilemma name, image, and likeness puts teams in. It can upset the chemistry. Players can get jealous and they can move on. But if I'm going to do it, I'm going to make it contractual and lock them down for 4 years. Well, yeah, you're going to have a contract. Antoine, I like what you're saying, everything, except if I'm advising, let's just say it's Jaden Davis, who's the number 1 quarterback next year, that Michigan is right there in the mix with. Some have called Michigan the leader. If I'm Jaden Davis's advisor and Antoine's coming to the table and say, hey, let's just say we're going to give you $4 million, but you got to stay for 4 years. If I'm Davis, I'm saying, well, what if I'm ready to go pro after 3? No, you're going to have to give that money back. No. I think you could have whatever the contract is going to be. You're not getting all that $4 million that first year. Or if you do and you transfer to another school, then you're going to have to owe, like they prorated, like they do with signing bonuses when players retire. You're going to have to go after that signing bonus. So maybe you do give them the $4 million up front, and maybe you do say, yeah, this is for the 4 years you're going to play at Michigan. You may want to say 5 because you may want to redshirt the guy. But if he wants to leave after 1, then he's only going to get 25%, and he's going to have to prorate and send you that other money back. There's a lot of different ways you can do it. But I think that's going to be the language in the contracts. That seems it seems, I don't know, like it seems fair. That's how business is done. All right, let's see what else is cooking on the feedback. Let's see. I still have some feedback here. Let's get to it. We go to Blue Dove. McCarthy can change the situation. That is, add to the offense what Cade doesn't, such as enhancing the run game and overall offense with his legs. Cade doesn't do that. Yeah, look, I get McCarthy. McCarthy, it could be the best quarterback ever to play at Michigan. Might be the best quarterback in the country next year. How and when he's able to take over as the starter, can he do it by game 1? Yeah, Blue Dove, he could. If I'm handicapping it right now, I would say that there's a 90% chance that it's going to be Cade. It's just going to be difficult to do, and the time presented and the snaps that are happening in fall ball for him to take over the job. Now, again, there is a chance. But when they both start playing against Colorado State, against Hawaii, against UConn, we'll all be able to see it. And by the time they're getting ready for their home opener against Maryland, I think that I would say it's 50-50 by then. And I would say that there's more of a chance that McCarthy starts against Iowa, because I'm with you of all of the different things that he could do. It reminds me of when Kaepernick was playing for the 49ers with Harbaugh when he had Alex Smith. Alex Smith was out there. You knew they wanted to put Kaepernick in. They played Alex Smith. It was Alex Smith. Alex Smith got popped upside the head, got his bell rung, and they had to miss the game. Kaepernick went in and that was it. When Alex Smith was ready to come back in, they were saying, "Hey, you don't lose your job because of injury." It's like, you know what? In this case, you do. He's waiting there. I don't think that if McNamara throws one interception that, he's going to get the hook and then, the tide's going to change or anything like that. But it is going to be a hell of a battle that way. I'll tell you, if he throws a pick and, then McCarthy's in there and he plays really well that game, you could see McCarthy starting the next game and then splitting the time that way. And however that's going to play out. What should count more than whatever they do in practice, it should count more on how they perform in a game. The controlled situation with practice, I think sometimes these coaches get a little bit too, I don't know, they should put more on what's going on out on the field. But I it's a good situation. I like the situation. They've got plenty of games to figure it out. I feel good about it. Robert likes the show. Walker, number 4, Dad. Keep up the good work. Thanks, Walker. I appreciate that. JJ has a stronger arm, has made passes Cade can't. Example of the Georgia game. I was just watching the Georgia game. I had it on. I was playing some poker on my phone. And then just had it on in the background. And JJ made that one throw in the middle of the field where he makes he's got a wow factor to him. I mean, he had the wow factor in game 1. That's when he threw that 69-yard touchdown pass to Baldwin, where he ran over to the side, did the Mahomes across the field. Game 1. Now, there have been some times where he's, he buried the ball on the ground with that arm strength. They're like every pass that he's thrown, it's just been, oh my God, this guy's the greatest of all time. But he's done enough to flash that arm strength, his ability with his legs. And he's got it too. Like all the things that he says, the way that he acts. Do I think that there can be a dual threat? He's a dual threat, not a dual threat. Like both of these guys playing all the games all the way through, where they're almost essentially splitting time. I don't think that can happen. So I think by the time they got to get ready for Iowa, they need to have a formula of how they had it last year. And that formula was in games where Michigan got up big time, they let the other quarterback play a lot. In other games, like let's just say Wisconsin and Michigan State, for example, because McCarthy did come in at different times in those games. But look what happened with McCarthy in that Michigan State game. I would have loved to have seen McNamara get one more throw down there in the red zone. Instead, they had McCarthy come in and he fumbled the ball out of bounds. Then maybe Cade ended up getting his bell rung and he was on the sideline and he wouldn't have been available anyways. I'm not sure of that, whether he was in the tent getting some medical care or not. I think that's what Doug Karsh told me when I talked with him on what was going on down on the sideline. But then that's the one where McCarthy came in and, put the ball up here to Corum, who didn't, and then it fumbled. Then it fumbled. Then they fumbled. And you heard some of the experts going, well, that's more on the running back than it is on the quarterback. Having different quarterbacks at different sizes and, the feel, sure. They come in and practice and everything else, but that's a lot to ask for the backs and everybody else to know they're going to be different. The more familiarity you can have with those quarterbacks, the better. That's why it just really hasn't worked in college football history. How many teams do it in the pros where they're playing two guys? Nobody. I mean, they've got some maybe a package where is it short? What's his name? That's going to be starting for the Browns week 1. Amazingly, Jacoby Brissett. When he was with the Colts, they would get him down to last year. They'd get him down to the 1 yard line or in short yardage situation. Brissett would come in, and there might be some other situations like that in the pros. And in college, you have seen some of that, but the split quarterbacks, like some kind of even split, it's let's just say it. It's a recipe for disaster. And there was a lot of people that thought it was a recipe for disaster last year in the Michigan State game, and it was a factor of why Michigan ended up losing that game against Michigan State. Now, Michigan's defense was outmaneuvered like McDonald was by Michigan State with those. That seemed to be the biggest factor. K9 running for 5 touchdowns, and State at different times running personnel out there and catching Michigan with their pants down. That seemed to be number 1. Number 2, just not being able to stop the run. Number 3, that big call in the first half with the strip, sack, a Jabo, touchdown, Hutchinson, how that one went down. I would put that at number 3. Michigan's inability to run the ball, maybe Corum dropping a pass there that was going to go for a big gainer. Maybe that one would be 4. 5, Michigan fumbling that ball with Corum. Of course, that was with McCarthy, so you could say that was part of the quarterback problem. McNamara throwing that pick late, forcing it when they still had a little bit of time there to go. Yeah, it was his only pick, you're putting a big standard on him, but it still could have been different. So it's down the list a little bit. Good stuff. We have some more on the feedback. We do have some more. Before we get to those, I know people are waiting around for my top 10 TV shows of all time. Treppa, I've heard some Michigan arguments against getting involved in the gray areas of NIL, but the potential problems they anticipate coming from it aren't any that don't already exist. Yeah, I think the argument about getting into the gray areas is that all of the other teams are going to be in the gray area. And for me, when you're talking about the gray area, let's kind of be clear on one thing. Before last year, the gray areas were promising somebody's pastor or their uncle, second uncle or something, giving them a briefcase full of money under the table, or wrapping things up in a it was like kind of like a gangster movie or something, in a paper bag, and then handing it to somebody under the table. The FBI was really interested in that because hundreds of thousands of dollars were changing hands and they weren't getting their cut. So I started wiretapping some Kansas phones, Sean Miller there at Arizona, and they ended up nabbing him. Or my man down at LSU. We made a strong ass offer over the phone. Guys didn't watch The Wire. Yeah, they had their phone. They were wiretapped. Don't say anything. Don't have the coach say anything. What's the point there? The point is that now it doesn't really even seem that much to me. It doesn't seem to be much of a gray area. Again, coming back to saying to a recruit, look, we can't promise you the money to play here, but what we can promise you is the opportunity to make whatever you're going to make anywhere else right here. And there's the contracts in front of you, even though it's not a promise to play here and it's not a guarantee. But look, you sign your name and it's a guarantee. It was a gulf, the gray area before. The gray area now is a pencil line. The gray area now is going 71 in a 70. And if Michigan wants to go 70 and doesn't want to go 71 in a 70, like I said, I think because you're seeing the eye-popping money with the quarterbacks, taking a year, figuring it out. What I do think is going to happen, Trepa, is that if Michigan, there's already been a lot of, like, I've been screaming and yelling about it, and it hasn't even happened yet, with losing out on Dante Moore. Maybe they would have lost out on him anyways. Maybe Michigan's recruiting class, I hope this doesn't happen. I hope they finish strong and they end up, being in the top 10 and all of it. But let's just say that they don't. Then, believe me, Michigan is going to come back. Their fans, which is going to be set up. This should be an incredible season this year. Michigan's going to go 3-0, 4-0. I think they're going to beat Iowa. They're going to go 5-0. I think they're going to Indiana. The Penn State game is going to be tough. Michigan State, they got to beat Michigan State. I think that they have a really good chance to go 11-0 this year. But, at that point, if we're getting to October, November, Michigan's 9-0, 10-0, and they're a month away from signing day, and they're like rated 30th because of Harbaugh's transformational, not transactional approach, and everybody else is ringing the cash register, then it's going to change, and it could be okay. Now, could you make the argument that one recruiting class is going to put you behind the 8 ball so bad, and Michigan wasn't first in, which maybe I'll ask some people that know business more than me, but they always first in wins, and Michigan in this case would not be first in because they would be taking a wait and see approach with their name, image, and likeness and guarantees and everything, and how it all plays out with all the big money and everything else. And maybe they'll do just fine, but maybe not. I'm talking about, is this the worst case scenario? Recruiting wise, Michigan finishing out of the top 25, top 30. That is a worst case scenario. And the fans will then be going crazy, and that's where behind the scenes that collective will be like, okay, push a little stronger about the no guarantees, and we'll know a lot more by then. If the teams look at Louisville's pulling guys in from all over the country. If Louisville's got some top 5 freaking recruiting class, and they got guys from all over the country, and these guys are they've got everything. They've got the next horse of the Kentucky Derby, name, image, and likeness. And, Michigan's there on the sideline, and you're like, how are these guys all doing it? Well, we know how they're all doing it. At that point, that's going to be a game changer. You don't want it to go down like that, but I think Michigan can, and this gets back to, can Michigan afford it? I don't want them to take a year off and stand on the sideline and have their transformational, not transactional approach, but I think they can afford it. And no, nobody likes taking a year off in recruiting. I'm not even saying that they have to, but I'm, again, the worst case scenario, but I think they can afford it. And the thing is, I think they can afford, if all these other teams can afford it, Michigan can afford it. So maybe it doesn't have to get to that point. Thank you, Blue. Appreciate it. Antoine is talking about a harder schedule. Doesn't do much. If you lose, you're out. So eat those cupcakes. You don't get much credit for the hard schedule. The Big Ten schedule is hard enough. Yeah, there you go, Antoine. I get it. I like Michigan winning and everything. But you know what I like about college football? I like big games. You know how different of a game, like let's take a Washington game last year, although Washington, you already knew it was going to be a lot easier because they lost to Montana. When you have a non-conference game that is losable and is a big name, is an intersectional game, all eyes are on it, it is 100 times more intense and interesting than a game against Hawaii. But yeah, Michigan wins it. It keeps the win. I get the arguments. I had to go back to it. Antoine, I have an idea. Can Michigan start an NIL tip jar? Doesn't sound like a bad idea. Look, they're going to get all kinds of things going. And behind the scenes, they do have some things going. But I do think that if you're just we'll call it, I don't know if we're casual fan. A casual sometimes is looked as, if you're not intertwined with Michigan or anything, There should be a website that you can go to with the Michigan Collective and hit a button, and you should be able to donate money to the Michigan Collective right now. That should be on the table. I don't know why it wouldn't be. Antoine, let's get it going. Maybe I need a little icon here on the screen. Michigan Collective. Hit it. Blue Dove would like to see the quarterbacks get complete drives. I recall McCarthy being brought in long yardage situation, was awkward substituting within drives. Not good in my opinion. Yeah, I mean, there's having McCarthy come in and hand the ball off twice on first and second down and then bring in McNamara in on a 3rd and 7. I mean, none of that's any good. That's the whole thing about a rhythm. Having a rhythm with your team, having a rhythm with your offense. Why do you see quarterbacks, what do they throw the ball like those screens? Where there's, you want to get that quarterback in rhythm. Just like a basketball player that's not really shooting threes right off the bat, you just want to get in and you drive or you take a shorter shot just to see the ball go through the hoop. A quarterback, just to get the pass out there, completing it. It breaks up the rhythm. So, yeah, I think that there's a lot of ways that you can cook things up to get these guys and split time and everything else. Split it up with the players that don't have deals. Otis, good to see him in the feedback. Let the others spend their money, tick off the sponsors because 131 teams aren't going to win the Natty. Miami paying 9.5 but doesn't win a Natty. What's next for them? Well, I don't know. I don't know what's going on in Miami. Miami's a different world. I don't know how many years ago, 5 years ago or something, I went to Miami. Miami, you walk around in Miami, I couldn't imagine it going to school in Miami. So, yeah, I can't imagine being on a yacht. What was the HBO show? Ballers? Is that what it's called? I think it was Playmakers, Ballers. A lot of it was down there. Boats, cars, the beach. Yeah, I don't know. You're right. I don't know what's going to happen with the $9.5 million. But, the money does sound like the whole thing, like, would you pay, Dante Moore $10 million if this guy's getting 9.5? You're like, wait a second, $10 million? But when you start thinking about the money that is generated by this sport, Michigan and the Big Ten, what are we talking about? If we had to guess, it's sometime coming up in July that they're going to announce the $1 billion TV package. And with that, the Big Ten right now, they just get a check for ticket sales, concessions, merchandise. Forget all of that. They'll get they get right now a check over $50 million from just TV. That is expected to go up to at least $75 million. Maybe $100 million per school. So it's time and before, I know that's what Ward Manuel would say if he was here. It's like, well, we have to pay for 25 other Olympic sports. We have to charter, this team, okay, I get that. That's what they always say. But, the football team makes all this money. Yeah, they got to pay a lot of big time salaries. This is and so maybe, and you could say, well, that's why they're so protective of always saying that these guys, we don't want to start paying them that, they're not going to be employees because they want to keep all that money. But I tell you, the sponsors that are paying so much money on the TV rights and everything else, if you're a Michigan company, maybe you should start putting that money towards the collective. All right. I thought today, like they do these, they do this on YouTube. I was watching, there is I don't know who the guy is. He does like some Michigan football pod. And I was looking and he, had hundreds of views and he had, his show was only like 4 minutes long, and he had like 2,000 views. And I'm like, well, what's he doing? He's not reading feedback. He's been at it for a while. Well, there's the idea of just do short YouTube, just do some shorts. I was like, today I'm going to be short. And now here we are an hour later almost. We'll get to Trepa, last one. Trepa says Michigan says if a players perform, NIL will be there, which I believe. But what if a player struggles to get playing time? Who's to blame? The coaches, the player? Either way, the player loses money. Yeah, well, it's the whole thing. Here's one thing that I know, Trepa, and it gets back to the thin line or the gray line or whatever you want to say. In sports, this is the reality that everybody should just know, and it's one that Michigan fans, Michigan administration, Michigan's collective, everybody should know. That guaranteed money always wins in sports. In football, whoever's giving the most guaranteed money almost always gets the player. There's some exceptions, guys that have made hundreds of millions of dollars. Sometimes they give hometown discounts, or sometimes they go ring chasing. But those are totally the exceptions. In football, especially a gladiator sport, you want to get as much, and it's almost any, business. Whoever is offering you the most and guaranteeing you the money wins your services. Everyone should remember that. So if Michigan, from a standpoint, is calling everybody else cheaters because they're saying we're not going to offer you the guaranteed money, well, they're not going to get those players. And again, they're going to take a year off, and they'll be able to examine it. They had a good year last year. They've got a chance at having a really good year this year. Their quarterback room right now is flush, so they've got time where they can sit back and say, okay, what's going to happen? But if this recruiting class goes off into a ditch, people are going to freak out. Can they afford to have 1 year where it does that? Then they can say, hey, either we've got to join them. I got to get on the phone to Kevin Warren and say, well, what the hell? We're out here, thinking that we're doing things, but, you're going to have our back, or whoever they need to call. And however it needs to get done. So that's it. Okay. 98% of the time, I'm talking about Michigan. 1% of the time I go off and I'll talk about some other sports. And then 1% of the time, I'll talk about something else. And in this case, I have a top 10 TV series of all time. I've been counting it down from 10 to 1. And without further ado, let's get that countdown going. At number 10, top TV series of all time, I went with, at number 10, Sons of Anarchy. I considered Ozark. I considered Orange is the New Black. And if I had a top 25, those would be included. But I went with Sons of Anarchy, the biker gang, Sam Crow. I loved it. At number 9, I went with Dexter and Dexter New Blood. We're talking about 106 episodes, and they'll be able to continue it on. I took Dexter over The Walking Dead and Stranger Things. It's horror, but I like it, and I have it at number 9. Number 8, top TV series of all time, I went with Downton Abbey. I went with that over The Crown. From Netflix, which I enjoyed, but super slow. The Crown is. Downton Abbey is not as slow. 6 seasons. They got 2 movies. I've seen them all except the latest movie. I love Downton Abbey. And that's why I have it number 8. Number 7, Fargo. Black comedy. Over Black Mirror, which I loved. Over American Horror Story, which is an anthology format. The dark comedy done the best. All 4 seasons are fantastic. I've never rewatched it, so it's just one time through. But I like all 4 seasons of Fargo, which is why it ranks number 7. Number 6, Narcos. Narcos is great. It's a companion series. It's the same thing. Mexico or when they were down in South America. It's great. Pablo Escobar, Felix Gallardo. The one drawback, you can't sit around tinkering around with your phone when you're watching it because the majority of the show is on subtitles, which, some people don't like, but I find that it keeps you engaged. Number 6, Narcos. Number 5, Boardwalk Empire. Prohibition gangster movie. Top notch. Steve Buscemi as Nucky Thompson. Doesn't get much better than that. The late, I hate saying it, Michael Kenneth. Omar from The Wire. Chalky White. Great character. Al Capone, Lucky Luciano, real life characters mixed in when this and Boardwalk Empire. It really doesn't get much better than Boardwalk Empire. It's a Hall of Fame show. Number 4, and this is where I'm just down to because I'll reveal the number 3 in the future. Mad Men. Mad Men that ran from 2007 through 2015. I think I started watching it around 2010, a couple seasons in, because it was still going on and I wasn't done. I caught up. But John Hamm as Don Draper, as the great ad agent in the 50s and 60s, this is as good as it gets. Well, when you're starting to talk about what you consider in your top 5 of all time, a Mad Men, how about 7 seasons, 92 episodes? You just wish that you could have 92 more. The only drawback that I could give to this series is that if you don't like smoking, you don't have to smoke, but if you don't like smoking and drinking, like if that bugs you to watch guys drinking a lot and guys smoking a lot, well, then you wouldn't like this show because I would guess that in every episode, and I'm sorry, every scene and the 92 episodes, somebody's drinking or smoking. I mean, it's all they do. They do a little acting, but they smoke and drink the whole time. But it is and that's the drawback. You might not like that. You don't like drinking. I don't want to see people just drinking all the time. Okay. Well, don't watch it. But other than that, it is great. So that's it. At some point this summer, I will get to my top 3, but those are right now all the way through number 4. So my, 7, 10 through 4. And I will reveal at some point the top 3. Hey, consider joining up the Maize and Blue Review. You're somebody that wants to read and get involved and know up to the minute what's going on with Michigan recruiting and what's going on and being said with the coaches in the offices and all that. The team there is constantly looking at it. Join the Maize and Blue Review today. Make it slide that subscription to the Michigan man in your life. They will love it. Michigan woman in your life. It's awesome. These podcasts are everywhere you find the podcast. As soon as I get done here, I change it over to podcast form and it'll be there. If I could ask anybody out there, if they haven't done any of the rating or reviewing or the subscribing, all of that helps us and all those social media places as well. I run the TikTok, although I haven't been in on my TikTok for about a week, so I'll work it there. And on Clubhouse, I always stay on after for a couple minutes answering any questions or anything else, and that's where I'm headed right now. Join us tomorrow when we will look at all Big Ten and all American Wolverines. Until then, everybody have a great rest of their day, and